Welcome. In today's video, we're going to be installing a transmission cooler and engine oil cooler underneath the bed of the Squarebody Overlander. So let's get into it. Before we get started on the install, let's go over all of the parts first. I have two Derale Atomic Cool 13750 coolers. These are rated to 30,000. The gross vehicle weight rating is 30,000 pounds for these, so it is more than enough for the engine oil and transmission of the Squarebody. I have a 25-foot roll of wire to connect to the leads, so it will go to our switch panel. For the oil pan side, I do have an adapter from ICT Billet that works with 6AN fittings, which I have two of them right here. So those two will screw into there, which will then accept the 6AN hose. That this is a 25-foot roll, so it should be more than enough for all of our oil cooler lines. These coolers also did come with 6AN adapters, so everything is just plug and play, no step up adapters, step down adapters, or anything like that. And I do have ICT billet fittings that are into the transmission housing, so it will accept the 6AN also, so it should be a super clean setup. And I will have links to all of these parts in the description down below. So now that we've gone over that, let me explain the square tubing that I'm using as the mounts for these coolers between the frame rails, and kind of show you my setup. So I have got these already prepped out and good to go to install underneath the truck. All I did was measure from inner frame rail to inner frame rail and, marked out the holes, drilled out the frame, and then marked the same thing onto these tubes and drilled them out and cleaned them up real well. These holes here on each side are for the coolers themselves, the bolt straight to them. So these are good to go and painted. And then, just a couple holes on each side of the frame. I reused an old hole on the frame in the front, just drilled it out a little bit larger. And then back here, kind of did the same thing with the spacing of the mounts for the coolers themselves as my spacing between the frame rails. So you guys will kind of see once I get these tubes installed, or these mounts installed between the frame rails, kind of what I'm talking about. But with all this prepped and me explaining everything we're installing, let's get these installed between the frame rails, then we'll start getting the coolers bolted up underneath the truck. All right, that side is tight. I'll tighten up the other side, and we have the crossbars fully installed. Well, you guys, underneath the truck here, the first step is to bolt on the crossbars. So I'm just going to drop the bolt through the top here, and those are good to go and in place. Kind of get this fighting with all these wires. Get it pushed through the pipe and held there. And then I'm going to do a washer and the nut. Just get it threaded on with my finger. Should be holding it kind of in place on that side, but I will go over there also and tighten up those bolts, or get those bolts started and then tighten it up. So I've got that one on with the washer and the nut. So that's kind of what I am thinking there. So let me get the other side on, and then I'll just tighten these down and they should be flush with the frame. And then from there, I'll show you kind of how I'm bolting on the coolers straight to these tubes here. So let me get these on here. All right, I just dropped the bolts in place just to help line everything up. So I'll get it lined up with the channels, and then I will just hold it in place, and just like with the crossbars, I'll just get the washers and the nuts started. This one's going to be a little harder because it's actually moving in the holes. Alright, that one started. Now, I'm not going to get these two tight yet. I want to get the other two bolts in there because it is kind of a tight fit with the tolerances between the holes I put in the tubing and the holes of the fan shroud itself. So I will just get those two finger tight, have it hang there, and then I'll put the other two in place like that. Just get it lined up. Okay, that one's in place, and then we will get this one in place. Cool. It is all lined up, so let me get these started with my fingers, these last two bolts, and then from there I'll tighten them all up and you guys will kind of see what I have planned and like my clearance with the drive shaft and everything like that. So let me get this one tightened up real quick. So the next step is install these fittings in the ICT Billet oil cooler setup adapter. These came with little O-rings, so they should seat in there perfect like that. So what I need to do is actually put on the inside first and tighten it up, and then it gives enough clearance for the outside. Just messing with this, seems like that is the best way to install them. So the edges of these right here, these little corners, do not hit each other, and then it becomes a nightmare to install them, or you got to round one of these out once you get it installed into the adapter. So I will get these tightened on there, and then from there on the back side it just takes two O-rings also that are supplied with the kit. So if I do run into any issues or leaks in the future, at least all of this is O-ring setup, so I can be able to fix it on the trail or hit a local hardware store and fix this stuff, so I don't have a huge oil leak on the side of my pan and losing a lot of engine oil. So I will get these tightened on in there, and then from there we will get this installed onto the oil pan. Well, I got the fittings into the adapter nice and clean, and I got the O-rings, coated in some oil and pushed them in there, so it should make a really nice seal onto the side of the oil pan. So the plan is to take that plug off of the side of the oil pan, so then I can put this on, and yeah, should look really good. I'll show you guys how it looks. So now that we got the adapter onto the side of the pan, let's start making some hoses. Kind of my plan with it was I'm going to take the first fitting, put it onto the hose, secure it to it onto the oil pan side, and then I will unroll the hose to where it will go onto the cooler. So then I know kind of how it contours along the frame and everything, so I will have more than enough hose, so it's just not stretched tight from pan to cooler, so I can easily secure it down to the frame rails. So that's kind of what I'm going to do, is secure the fitting to the hose, unroll it to where it will go onto the cooler, and then we will get to cutting that one, and then kind of do the same thing for the other side, and then we will start doing it for the transmission also. Well, here it is, hose coming out of the pan, along the frame, going across and into the cooler down there, and I like how it looks. The one thing that I thought I maybe screwed up on, showing you guys up here, is the loop on the frame that is underneath the header. I thought I maybe cut it too long, but I actually like how that looks, where it'll loop up and out of the way, so it will give me more than enough clearance with the short tube header, so I do not warm up any of the fluids or melt the hoses at all. So I'm going to do the same thing with the second hose, and then there's some holes in the frame here that I will zip tie it to hold those hoses up and out of the way of the short tube header and the linkage right here. It will just go right behind the linkage that I will have to move at a later date to work with the 4L80E. But yeah, I like how that looks. That's going to look super clean and up and out of the way and tucked into the frame. So I will make the second hose, then you guys will see the final result, and then I will make the hoses for the transmission. There we go. There's the lines coming out of the oil pan across the frame rail. I will need to cut these zip ties and reconfigure this when it is time to do the linkage for the steering column, but that's why these are loose for now. But they are going along the top side of the frame rail, dip down, and go right into the cooler. So it's pretty clean. I'm pretty happy with it. I will need to refine it some when I redo that transfer, or for the transmission linkage when I do that. But yeah, it looks good and I am very happy with it. So it is time to do the transmission lines. Check out those cooler lines going into the transmission inlet and outlet. They look really good. Coming along the top of the frame here. On the same route as the engine oil cooler lines. But I don't need to mess with the zip ties at all. So those are permanent. Just because I don't have to mess with anything running along the passenger side frame rail up top there. They go through the wires for the auxiliary battery setup and to the bottom side of the cooler. So we are done here. Once I get the switch panel installed under the hood, I will do the wiring for these. So I'm not too entirely concerned at the moment. I'm just glad that the motor and the transmission are sealed up now, at least closed off. I did have plastic bags over the ports on both, but I just wasn't entirely comfortable with that. So I'm glad these hoses are done. This is a major step towards the LS swap, so I'm extremely happy with it. Well, you guys, we are all done here, so I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much. It means the world to me. If you haven't, subscribe to the channel so you can follow along on the adventures and the truck build and the Jeep build. Also, comment down below if you think it is a good idea to run the coolers underneath the truck, or if you guys have any tips and tricks to help out the next people that are doing oil coolers on their vehicle. Also, like the video, and just to let you know, I will have links to everything I've used in this video down in the description. So thank you guys again for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye, you guys.